Overview of nutrition for the year ahead. Kind of the main focus will be on eating right for recovery so that we can get over all the particularly hard trends and matches that are coming up. We'll be looking at the main points that are actually important in a diet, looking at the concept of calorie balance, know what the three macronutrients are, see examples of them all, how they all work, how they benefit you, the best kind of amounts and times and types to have them all, and then look a little bit at hydration and a few practical things we can take away. So, key points then, yeah. So, understand what's important in a diet, calorie balance, macronutrients, hydrate. So, big question is what actually is a healthy diet? So, it's going to be completely different for everyone based on what they want to do. A 50-year-old man who sits at a desk all day, comes home and sits on the couch, will need very, very different food for someone who's really, really active, training for a marathon, training for weightlifting, training for any kind of sport that anyone will play. And we'll look at the main things that are important. Using this pyramid here, we can see the most important things with calorie balance here at the bottom. That accounts for probably as much as all the others combined. Most questions tend to be asked around supplements or food composition, such as is white rice or brown rice better? But realistically, it doesn't make a difference unless this bit here at the bottom is sorted out. So we'll just explore that a little bit further here. The total amount of food that you eat is by far the most important. Then the type of food, and then the timing of your food. Now we will look at all three in a little bit today, but the key thing to remember is that the total amount you eat is going to have way more of an impact on how you feel, how you perform in sport, everything like that, than the type you eat or the timing of it. But they can have an impact once the total is right. So just the basic concept then of energy balance is that however much energy you take in terms of calories, if that equals the amount that you put out through like whatever amount of exercising you're doing, whatever your body size is, your body weight will stay the same. So the example given here is that if you eat 2,500 in a day and you use up 2,500 in a day, you'll stay the exact same weight. Now, if you're putting out 2,500 in a day, probably about 1,500 of that are just keeping you alive. You're only really burning about another 1,000, say, in exercise that you're doing. Next then, the positive energy balance. So if you take in 4,000 calories in a day and you only burn 2,000, you're going to gain weight. And the flip side of that, if you take in 2,000 but you need 3,000, you're going to lose weight. And what's really important to remember here is if you're only eating 2,000 and it all comes from McDonald's, but you burn 3,000, you could actually lose weight. And on the flip side of that, if you're eating 4,000 and it all comes from broccoli, brown rice and chicken, you will actually gain weight, the majority of which will be fat. Now realistically, if you were only eating 2,000 calories at McDonald's a day, you'd feel absolutely horrible. You'd get quite sick very soon and you just wouldn't be able to survive on that. But in theory, you would lose weight on it. Some of the negatives then of not having enough calories, not eating enough, particularly people who play sport, is that you'll have a drop in performance, both in terms of like how your mind works, but particularly how your body works in whatever sport you play. A major lack of energy because that's what calories are. So if you're not taking in enough calories to provide food, well, you're just not going to have enough energy to do your general day-to-day stuff and also play your sport. Massive increased risk of injury because if there's not enough calories there to help you recover from what you're doing, then your muscles and everything will start to break down. A loss of muscle mass and increased risk of illness and lower concentration because if you're hungry, you don't have enough fuel for your brain, plus it'll start taking from what you're actually thinking or should be concentrating on. On the opposite side then, so too many calories, you're going to gain weight, the majority of which will be fat, which just leads to being inefficient if you're moving around the pitch or around the track or anything like that. Puts extra pressure on your organs, your heart and lungs and everything that way. Even imagine putting a heavy school bag on your back and trying to run or play a match with that. It's going to just put extra pressure on all of your body. Whereas the same thing has happened with fat, it's just been really inefficient. Mood swings, a drop in performance, the obvious one, plus your increased risk of all those overweight type diseases, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, everything like that. Where then do the calories actually come from? So they come from the macronutrients, three of which are protein, fat and carbohydrate. We're going to examine these a little bit further now to see what they do for our body, how much ideally we should be eating and examples of the three different types. The main role of protein is to build and maintain muscle. It also supports bone strength because all your bones are surrounded by muscle, so a stronger muscle helps keep that bone then in a lot more safer and stronger position. Best sources are lean red meat, poultry, which is chicken or turkey, fish, eggs, and cottage cheese. To look down at the total amount that we need in a day, so you want about 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per your kg of body weight. Now, what does that mean? So if you weigh 60 kg, you need between about 100 and 130 grams a day. 65 kg player, 110 to 135, again, in or around 70 or an 80 kg player. That's about how much you need. Now, that'll change every day based on whether you're trying to gain weight, whether you're trying to lose weight, how much resistance training you're doing, but generally you look to fall in those ranges somewhere each day. The type of protein then, so it's not all actually created entirely equal. You need the right blend of amino acids. Amino acids are what make up protein, all the different types that we eat, and you can see a load of them over here. Leucine is by far the most important. It is the one mainly responsible for building muscle, maintaining muscle mass, everything like that. And any protein that comes from an animal tends to contain the right amount of leucine. So from that picture there, you can see that milk, chicken, salmon, eggs, and I think that's pork, would all come from animals, whereas nuts may not. Okay, your cheese is there as well. They would have originally come from animals. They tend to be the best type of protein to eat. So if you can have the majority of it coming from some way related to an animal, it's usually of better quality. So yeah, your beef, pork, chicken, turkey, eggs, dairy, and fish. The timing then is what people tend to focus on most. So particularly on making sure they have protein, getting that protein shake or protein milk in straight after training. It's not as important, but there is still a benefit to having your timing right. So it breaks down protein very slowly across the day. So timing around exercise isn't particularly important. It's usually more important that spaced evenly in different spaces throughout your whole day to kind of keep a decent level of it there. Although realistically, breakfast time probably is most important, as you've gone 8, 10, sometimes even 12 hours without any servings of protein because you've been asleep and you might not have ate right before you went to bed. So just look at an example then of someone getting the right amount of protein a day, but maybe not spacing it out properly. So for breakfast, they get up and they have a fruit smoothie and a bowl of cereal. They get 10 grams there, mainly from the milk. Lunchtime, they have soup and brown bread. Again, 10 grams there, probably being a bit generous with that amount. A snack of banana with some peanut butter on bread. Post-gym, then, they have a protein shake made with milk. And then for dinner, they have chicken and a load of roast veg and maybe some spuds of that. So add all that up, and they're getting 137 grams of protein, which is quite a lot. But you can see that the majority of it is just here, straight after the gym, then when they go home for dinner. Now, realistic, if you look at that, you could think it's quite a healthy diet. There's a bit of colour, there's some veg, brown bread, and it is quite good, but you can do better than that. So here's another option then, which has about the same amount, but spaced out a little more evenly. Breakfast, you have an omelette, and you can include whatever you like here. Picture is ham, but you'd have some chicken, or you could just put in loads of veg, or tomato, or cheese, or whatever you like most yourself. Lunch then, chicken fillet, rice, and some stir-fried veg. A snack then is porridge. That can be made either with protein milk or put in a scoop of whey. Post-gym, then you have your protein milk and a banana, and then for dinner you have a steak with some veg and some spuds. So again, adding it all up, here you have 135 grams, but it's spaced out much more evenly throughout the day, between 25 and 30 grams at each stage. So you have that constant supply of protein the whole way through, and majority of which are from animal sources again. Because most people tend to struggle at breakfast time, I've just put up a few options here. So Greek yogurt, nuts, and a small fruit salad, an omelette with chicken, ham, tomatoes, whatever you like really, some protein porridge, either protein milk or some whey powder, poached eggs and smoked salmon, a super shake, which is you just follow the steps on that there and add your scoop of whey to it. You can have turkey sausages, some normal bacon rashers or turkey rashers, and eggs, or protein pancakes. The easiest way to make them is with porridge oats and a scoop of whey, or with bananas and egg whites. So feel free to screenshot this and work your way through them. You have 7 different options there, so try one each day and decide which one you like. How protein works then is when we do exercise, we get all these tiny little micro tears. So whether that's a gym session or a hard pit session or like that, all the little muscle fibers in your body break down. Tiny little micro tears. Now it can take them a long time to build back up. So as we eat protein then from our meat or from our whey or milk or whatever like that, they all heal back up again. That can take up to 48 hours before they're fully healed. So that dose of protein straight after training isn't as important as keeping it steady doses for the whole day afterwards or for 2 days afterwards, because it can take so long to heal, and that's why you need it evenly spaced as opposed to just one big dose. And that's really looking at the majority of protein. Next we look at carbohydrates. And the first thing to emphasize is that they do need to be earned. Based off the type of exercise you're doing or how hard you've been doing it, you need to make sure you're getting enough. They provide, compared to everything else, quite fast-acting energy. It also supports brain function, as while our muscles can store up energy, particularly from the glycogen and carbohydrates, our brain isn't really able to do that. So you need slightly more steady doses of it, but that can come from more high-fiber stuff. Your best source then are vegetables, fruit, rice, and spuds. How, again, carbohydrate works. So as you exercise, say this muscle here is filled with glycogen. Carbohydrate turns into the glycogen as energy in the body. As you exercise, the glycogen is used up. So if you just look at the color of the muscle there, you'll see it fading and fading a little bit more. That means it's used up all of the actual carbohydrate in there. As we eat carbohydrates then afterwards, particularly ones that are a little bit more sugary, they'll replace that. So you have your cereal, your sugary milk, sweet potatoes, normal potatoes, or any of those snack options there. They'll all return the muscle back to its original colour. And that can be done actually quite quickly in 1 to 4 hours, which is much, much quicker than protein works. So they're most important to either store up, have them there in advance of training, but particularly right after training. It's much more important to get a serving of carbohydrates straight afterwards as opposed to protein. If you have something that contains them both, such as if we go back here to our Muju or even your bowl of cereal with some protein milk, they'll add both straight away. And then again, the harder the exercise is, the more carbohydrate you need. Partly because you've used up more glycogen, but also because you've just used up more calories in general. Fat then, we'll only touch on. Ideally it'd be eaten in smaller portions. You want to keep it away from exercise because it takes so much longer to digest. So I'd usually recommend avoiding fat completely for maybe 2 to 3 hours before exercise and maybe 1 to 2 hours afterwards. It can often be mixed in with meat or other proteins, and making sure you eat some fat is very important to help you absorb some vitamins and minerals in your diet, as they're fat soluble and they can only be digested along with fat. And you can see then your good fats and your bad fats. Down here, like salmon, that's where you'll have fat mixed in with it, and some of the deep fried stuff you want to try and avoid. Brings us on then to some hydration. So your body's 60 to 70% water, and we know that can be used up through just going to the toilet or sweating, so you need to keep a steady supply of it there. What happens when we become dehydrated? You have less energy, reduced concentration, increased risk of injury or cramping, headaches. And the big thing is you want to try and avoid getting thirsty. You don't need to be stuffed full with water all the time, particularly in winter time. Summer, you might need to concentrate on a little bit more. But if you're thirsty, it probably is a little bit too late. To check your hydration, usually the best thing is check the colour of your pee. It kind of stops any major difficulties arising. And sometimes you want to aim to be up here or at least in this one. If you're down here, you're in a bit of trouble, and it's well worth topping up with quite a lot of water and being mindful of the next time you're exercising to make sure you don't let yourself get to that stage. It can be worth making up your own recovery drink, especially if you're involved in sessions lasting longer than an hour. So usually to make them up yourselves, a little bit of water, a pinch of salt, because when we sweat we lose quite a bit of salt, and some of my Waddy or Robinsons just had a little bit of extra carbohydrate. Put that in your own bottle and it's your own recovery drink made up. Also a little bit more hygienic than sharing bottles with other people. So what to take from all this then? It's been a lot of information, but how do you actually go and implement it all? So try and base your diet on natural foods. If you can ask one of these 4 questions about the majority of foods that you eat, you're going to be eating some very good stuff. So first one then, did it walk? Did it fly? Did it swim? Or did it come from the ground? That'll tie in the majority of your meats, fruits, vegetables, which are probably your best sources of carbohydrate. And if it doesn't directly come from one of these questions, you want to try and minimize the amount of steps. So for example, if you have your chicken fillet, which most likely walked as opposed to flew, if that's just a straight chicken fillet, it's just been 1 step straight from walking. Whereas if you have a breaded one, that's gone through a few stages of processing. By adding the breadcrumbs, adding whatever other additives are there, you want to minimize those as much as possible. Same thing with down here. If you're just having straight potatoes or spuds for your dinner, they've probably just come straight out of the ground and been washed. Whereas if you're eating some oven chips, it's gone through a lot of processing. Same with rice, it's probably come straight from the ground, put into the package and sent over. Whereas pasta, while it's not bad, has gone through a couple more steps of processing. Next one then, these are your foundation foods. So when you're going food shopping, it's best to try and free to leave them out. You should never really force yourself to eat foods that you don't like. But all the ones here are very, very easy to use as kind of the basis or the foundation of your diet, and add other foods in that you like on top of these. You don't need to eat all of them every day, but trying to have them 3 to 4 times a week will make sure you're getting in the majority of vitamins and minerals and everything that you do need. If there are others then that you do like, just mix them in between those. But again, if there's ones you don't like, just absolutely leave them out and just avoid them completely if you want. But where possible, try and have a store of these in your house or on your shopping list, and you're more likely to eat them then and include them in whatever recipes, dinners, lunches that you normally make. Your portion guidelines then, which is possibly the most important to make sure you are eating the right amount of food or right amounts of food. So your serving of carbohydrate usually needs to be a cupped hand. If it's a particularly active day where you're having a training session or a very, very busy day on your feet, you could double that up and have 2 cupped hands. Particularly around training time, you probably want a large cupped hand or 2 cupped hands a couple of hours before training and directly afterwards. Whereas if it's a day where you're sitting around a lot, either in the library studying or working in an office, maybe you need to reduce the amount of carbohydrate you're eating, or just have mainly veg and fruit instead of your standard carbohydrates. Your serving of vegetables then is a fist size. Like I said, if it's a particularly busy or not a busy day, you could double your veg and have less carbohydrate. Your protein then wants to be about the size of the palm of your hand. So if you're looking at, say, a chicken fillet or a piece of mince steak, that's about the size of the palm of your hand. You're aiming for 4 to 5 of those throughout the day. Your servings of fat then, you're looking at a thumb size. Again, if it's a particularly busy day, you could look to double that up, but again, keep your servings of fat away from exercise. Just thanks for listening to this then, and contact me with any questions, or if you want to look a bit more in depth at your calorie requirements or for food diary analysis, or if you want something a little bit more individualized, then feel free to contact me about that. Just thanks for taking the time to listen to this.